Welcome to Crime Unveiled Podcast. Dive deep into the mysteries that captivate us. If you appreciate this episode, please consider liking and subscribing to support us.
Today, we unravel a story of ambition, deception, and the catastrophic downfall of a corporate giant, Enron. It's a tale that shook the foundations of the financial world and left countless lives in ruins. In the late 1990s, Enron was hailed as an innovative energy company, a symbol of the new economy. Its stock soared, its executives amassed fortunes, and its name became synonymous with success. But beneath the veneer of prosperity lurked a dark secret, a web of complex accounting fraud and systemic corruption that would ultimately bring the company crashing down. We'll explore the intricate details of this scandal, examining the key players, the deceptive practices they employed, and the devastating consequences that followed.
Enron's rise was meteoric. From its humble beginnings as a merger of two natural gas pipeline companies in 1985, it rapidly transformed into a dominant force in the energy trading sector. Led by charismatic CEO Jeffrey Skilling, Enron embraced deregulation and pioneered the use of complex financial instruments, such as special-purpose entities, to mask its true financial condition. These entities, ostensibly created to manage risk, were instead used to hide billions of dollars in debt and inflate Enron's reported profits. This created an illusion of phenomenal growth, attracting investors and driving up the company's stock price.
The complexity of Enron's financial dealings was deliberately designed to obscure the underlying reality. Mark-to-market accounting, a practice that allowed Enron to book potential future profits as current earnings, further distorted the company's financial picture. This practice, while legal under certain circumstances, was exploited by Enron to create a false sense of profitability, masking the mounting losses that were accumulating within the company. This elaborate scheme, combined with the aggressive promotion of Enron's stock by its executives, created a climate of euphoria and invincibility.
The warning signs, however, were there. Whispers of accounting irregularities began to circulate among analysts and journalists. Questions were raised about the opacity of Enron's financial statements and the lack of transparency in its dealings. But these concerns were largely dismissed or ignored, overshadowed by the company's continued success and the unwavering confidence of its leadership. Few could have predicted the scale of the deception and the devastating consequences that would soon unfold. The story of Enron is a cautionary tale of unchecked ambition and the dangers of corporate greed. Person one greater than. Person one greater than. Before the storm of scandal hit, Enron's headquarters in Houston projected an image of prosperity and innovation. The gleaming skyscrapers, the bustling energy of its employees, the aura of a company at the forefront of its industry. It all contributed to a sense of stability, a belief in the unwavering success of the company. The employees, many of whom had invested heavily in Enron stock, enjoyed a seemingly comfortable life. They lived in quiet suburban neighborhoods, drove luxury cars, sent their children to good schools. It was a life built on the promise of Enron's continued growth, a life that revolved around the company's success. Few could have imagined the devastating collapse that was about to shatter this carefully constructed reality, leaving behind financial ruin and shattered trust. They were living the American dream, or so they thought.
Indeed, the Enron employees and their families formed a tight-knit community, woven together by shared ambitions and a common faith in the company's leadership. Company picnics, holiday parties, and team-building exercises fostered a sense of belonging. Neighbors chatted about stock options and retirement plans, confident in their financial future. Children grew up in an environment where Enron's success was a constant, almost invisible presence, shaping their expectations of the world. This close-knit community, built on shared prosperity, amplified the impact of the scandal. The downfall of Enron didn't just mean financial ruin. It meant the fracturing of a community, the shattering of a shared belief system. The very foundation of their lives was about to crumble.
Many employees considered Enron not just a workplace, but a family. Their lives were intertwined with the company's culture, with its values of innovation, respect, integrity, and excellence. Ironically, the very values that would later be exposed as a facade. There was a powerful sense of shared purpose, a belief that they were building something extraordinary together. The long hours, the demanding work, the pressure to perform, it all seemed worthwhile. Fueled by the promise of financial reward and the prestige of being part of a seemingly revolutionary company. This deep-seated loyalty to Enron, this unwavering belief in its leadership, made the eventual betrayal even more devastating. They had placed their trust, their livelihoods, their very identities in the hands of a company that was about to betray them all.
Beyond the gleaming facade of corporate success lay a darker reality, carefully concealed from public view. While employees and investors celebrated Enron's meteoric rise, a culture of secrecy and deception was festering within the company's upper echelons. Complex accounting practices, designed to hide debt and inflate profits, were becoming increasingly entrenched. A climate of fear and intimidation silenced those who questioned the company's methods. This hidden rot, slowly eating away at the core of Enron, would eventually bring the entire edifice crashing down, leaving behind a trail of devastation and a legacy of corporate greed and malfeasance.
The year is 1996. Enron is soaring, a beacon of the new energy economy. Jeffrey Skilling, the newly appointed Chief Operating Officer, is implementing mark-to-market accounting, a practice that allows Enron to book potential future profits as current earnings. This revolutionary approach propels Enron's stock price to dizzying heights. Analysts hail Skilling as a visionary, and investors scramble to buy shares. From the outside, it's a picture of unbridled success, but within this seemingly perfect structure, a subtle distortion begins to emerge. A shadow lurking beneath the surface of success. Rumors of complex and opaque partnerships, designed to keep debt off Enron's balance sheet, start circulating amongst industry insiders. These whispers, however, are largely drowned out by the roar of Enron's ascendance.
The complexity of Enron's business model became a significant factor. While analysts and investors were captivated by the company's rapid growth and innovative strategies, the intricate web of special purpose entities, or SPEs, was becoming increasingly difficult to understand. These SPEs, ostensibly created to manage specific assets and projects, allowed Enron to shift debt off its books, presenting a deceptively healthy financial picture to the world. This financial engineering, while legal at the time to a certain extent, created a veil of obscurity, masking the true financial state of the company. The very complexity that seemed to drive Enron's success also sowed the seeds of its downfall, as the intricate financial maneuvering made it increasingly difficult to discern the reality beneath the facade.
Imagine Houston, a city pulsating with energy, literally and figuratively. Enron's headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and steel, dominates the skyline, a symbol of the company's power and influence. Employees, dressed in sharp suits, move with purpose through the bustling lobby, their faces reflecting the optimism of the era. Company-sponsored events, lavish parties, and philanthropic initiatives further solidify Enron's image as a benevolent corporate giant. But this picture of prosperity, this image of a company at the pinnacle of its success, masked a growing unease. The whispers about questionable accounting practices persist, growing louder in the hushed corners of the financial world.
Fast forward to 1999. Enron's stock price continues its meteoric rise. The company diversifies into broadband and water trading, further fueling the perception of its limitless potential. Skilling's star shines brighter than ever. He is lauded for his innovative thinking and aggressive strategies. Enron is the darling of Wall Street, a symbol of the new economy's promise. However, within the company, a culture of fear and secrecy begins to take hold. Employees who question the accounting practices or express concerns about the sustainability of the business model are silenced, their careers often jeopardized. This internal pressure, combined with the external pressure to maintain the illusion of success, creates a volatile environment ripe for disaster. The shadow lurking beneath the surface is growing darker, threatening to engulf the entire structure.
Let's delve into the first significant incident that exposed cracks in Enron's facade: the California energy crisis of 2000-2001. During this period, California experienced widespread blackouts and soaring electricity prices. Enron's traders were accused of manipulating the state's deregulated energy market, using strategies with names like Death Star and Ricochet to create artificial shortages and drive up prices. Internal memos and recorded phone conversations later revealed Enron employees discussing these manipulative practices, boasting about how they were stealing money from California. This wasn't just a matter of corporate greed. It directly impacted millions of Californians, disrupting their lives and businesses. The crisis became a focal point for investigators, providing early clues to the deeper rot within Enron.
These trading strategies were incredibly complex and designed to exploit loopholes in the deregulated market. For instance, Death Star involved exporting power out of California, creating a false shortage, and then importing the same power back at inflated prices. Ricochet involved scheduling power transfers to create congestion on transmission lines, again driving up prices. These tactics, combined with Enron's aggressive lobbying and political influence, allowed them to reap massive profits while California struggled. The audacity of these schemes was almost unbelievable. They weren't just bending the rules, they were breaking them, and they knew it. The evidence in the form of internal communications paints a clear picture of deliberate manipulation and a complete disregard for the consequences.
The California energy crisis provided a crucial window into Enron's unethical business practices. While it wasn't the only factor contributing to the crisis, Enron's role was undeniable. The subsequent investigations, spurred by public outrage and media scrutiny, began to unravel the larger web of deceit. It became clear that the manipulation in California wasn't an isolated incident, but rather a symptom of a deeper systemic problem within the company. This initial exposure, while shocking, only scratched the surface of the complex financial fraud that would eventually bring Enron crashing down.
The financial impact on California was staggering. Businesses were forced to close, consumers faced exorbitant energy bills, and the state's economy suffered significantly. The human cost was also substantial, with rolling blackouts disrupting daily life and causing hardship for countless families. While Enron executives profited enormously, ordinary Californians bore the brunt of their manipulative schemes. The crisis served as a stark example of how corporate greed and unchecked power can have devastating real-world consequences. This sets the stage for understanding the scale and depth of the deception that characterized Enron's operations, ultimately leading to its demise.
The implosion of Enron sent shockwaves through the financial world. The sheer scale of the fraud was unprecedented. Almost overnight, a company valued at $70 billion evaporated, leaving countless investors, employees, and retirees financially devastated. The immediate aftermath was a scene of stunned disbelief. People who had trusted Enron with their livelihoods, their retirement savings, their futures, were suddenly facing ruin. The corporate headquarters in Houston became a grim symbol of betrayal. Desks were cleared out, personal belongings abandoned, the once bustling offices now eerily silent. The air was thick with a sense of loss, confusion, and growing fear. What would happen next? How could this have happened? These questions hung heavy in the air, unanswered, adding to the unsettling atmosphere.
The collapse wasn't just a financial disaster, it was a human tragedy. Families lost their homes, their savings, their sense of security. The stories of hardship that emerged were heartbreaking. Employees who had dedicated years to Enron, who believed in the company's vision, found themselves jobless and penniless. Many had invested heavily in Enron stock, essentially putting all their eggs in one basket, a basket that had now vanished into thin air. The fear wasn't just about financial ruin. It was about the loss of trust. Trust in the company, trust in the system, trust in the very foundations of the American economy. The Enron scandal exposed a deep rot within the corporate world, a rot that had been festering beneath the surface of booming stock prices and glowing annual reports.
The fear quickly spread beyond Houston, beyond Texas, rippling throughout the entire country. Investors across the nation watched in horror as their portfolios plummeted. The Enron debacle shook confidence in the stock market, contributing to a broader decline. The scandal also raised serious questions about corporate governance, accounting practices, and the role of regulatory agencies. How could such massive fraud go undetected for so long? Were the watchdogs asleep at the wheel? The public demanded answers, demanding accountability. The calls for investigations, for prosecutions, grew louder and louder. The Enron scandal wasn't just a business story. It was a story about the erosion of trust, the fragility of the system, and the devastating consequences of unchecked greed.
The documentary, Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room, vividly captures the atmosphere of fear and uncertainty that permeated the aftermath. The film features interviews with former employees, analysts, and journalists, painting a chilling picture of the company's culture of arrogance and deception. The footage of employees clearing out their desks, the vacant offices, the stunned silence, it all speaks volumes about the human cost of this corporate crime. The film also highlights the complex web of financial instruments and accounting tricks that Enron used to hide its losses and inflate its earnings. Understanding these intricate details is crucial to grasping the full extent of the fraud and the devastating consequences that followed. The Enron scandal serves as a stark reminder of the importance of transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct in the business world.
Let's delve deeper into the psychology of the key figures at Enron, particularly Jeffrey Skilling and Kenneth Lay. Skilling, with his MBA from Harvard and impressive consulting background, projected an image of sharp intellect and strategic brilliance. He championed mark-to-market accounting, a practice that, while legal, allowed Enron to book potential future profits as current earnings, creating a distorted picture of financial health. This aggressive approach, coupled with his demanding and often abrasive management style, fostered a culture of risk-taking and a willingness to push boundaries, even ethical ones. It raises the question, was this ambition driven by a genuine belief in Enron's potential, or a more narcissistic desire for personal gain and recognition? His demeanor and actions suggest a complex individual, driven by a need to maintain the facade of success, regardless of the consequences.
And then there's Kenneth Lay, the chairman and CEO, who cultivated a public image of Texan charm and folksy wisdom. He fostered close relationships with political figures and presented himself as a pillar of the community. This carefully crafted persona clashed sharply with the reality of his involvement in the complex financial schemes that ultimately brought Enron down. Lay's public statements consistently emphasized Enron's strong financial position, even as the company teetered on the brink of collapse. Was this a deliberate attempt to mislead investors and the public? Or was he, as some have suggested, genuinely unaware of the extent of the fraud? Understanding Lay's psychology is crucial to piecing together the full picture of the Enron scandal. His outward persona seems to contradict the actions taken behind closed doors, leaving us to question the true nature of his motivations.
The contradictions within Skilling's personality are particularly striking. He possessed undeniable intelligence and business acumen, yet he oversaw a system riddled with deceptive accounting practices. He demanded high performance from his employees, creating a pressure cooker environment where ethical corners were cut to meet unrealistic expectations. While some argue that Skilling was blinded by ambition, others believe he was fully aware of the illegalities and actively orchestrated them. The evidence suggests a disconnect between his public persona, the brilliant strategist, and the reality of his actions, which ultimately led to the downfall of one of America's largest corporations. This disconnect is precisely what makes the Enron case so fascinating and disturbing.
Lay's behavior presents a different kind of puzzle. He cultivated an image of integrity and responsibility, yet he presided over a company engaged in widespread fraud. Some argue that his decentralized management style allowed the problems to fester beneath his notice, while others believe he was actively involved in concealing the truth. His close ties to political figures raise questions about potential influence and whether those connections played a role in the delayed regulatory scrutiny. The discrepancies between Lay's public image and the eventual outcome of his leadership raise serious questions about his true understanding of the situation and his role in the company's demise.
Let's delve into the intricacies of the investigation, a period marked by frustrating dead ends and fleeting moments of false hope. Investigators faced a colossal task. Enron's accounting practices were deliberately convoluted, designed to obscure rather than illuminate. They used special-purpose entities, or SPEs, to hide debt and inflate earnings. Unraveling this web of financial deceit required forensic accounting expertise and painstaking document review. Early in the investigation, there was a sense of chasing shadows. The sheer volume of data was overwhelming, and Enron's executives, particularly Skilling and Lay, maintained a facade of innocence. This, coupled with the complex nature of the fraud, made it challenging to pinpoint culpability and gather irrefutable evidence. It was a slow, arduous process of piecing together a puzzle where many of the pieces seemed deliberately missing.
Adding to the investigators, difficulties were the instances of what could be interpreted as taunting communications from key figures within Enron. While not explicitly admitting guilt, certain internal memos and emails, discovered later in the investigation, hinted at the deceptive practices employed. These communications, often couched in corporate jargon, seemed to flaunt the company's ability to manipulate the system. Although not initially considered strong evidence, these communications later provided valuable context. painting a picture of a corporate culture that prioritized profit over ethical conduct. They became crucial pieces in reconstructing the timeline of the fraud and understanding the motivations of those involved. One particular email chain between executives discussed the Jedi Master strategy for energy trading, a cryptic reference later revealed to be a tactic for market manipulation.
Furthermore, there were several instances where investigators felt they were on the verge of a breakthrough, only to encounter another roadblock. One such instance involved the discovery of a series of shredded documents at Enron's headquarters. Initially, this seemed like a significant find, potentially containing vital evidence. However, reconstructing these documents proved to be a Herculean task, and the information gleaned was ultimately less conclusive than hoped. This was a recurring theme throughout the investigation, tantalizing glimpses of the truth, obscured by layers of obfuscation. These moments of false hope were undoubtedly demoralizing for the investigative team, highlighting the lengths to which Enron had gone to conceal their fraudulent activities.
The investigation was also hampered by the sheer scale of the scandal and the number of individuals involved. Untangling the complex web of relationships and transactions required extensive resources and manpower. Investigators had to interview countless employees, review millions of documents, and trace financial flows across numerous jurisdictions. This complexity created opportunities for missed leads and overlooked evidence. Early on, the focus was primarily on the top executives, like Lackey and Skilling. However, as the investigation progressed, it became clear that the fraud permeated multiple levels of the organization. This realization broadened the scope of the investigation significantly, requiring even more time and resources, and further delaying the eventual uncovering of the truth. The sheer scale of the deception was almost unimaginable at the outset.
The human cost of Enron's collapse remains a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of corporate greed and fraud. Thousands of employees, many of whom had invested their life savings in Enron stock, saw their retirement funds vanish overnight. The sense of betrayal was profound. These weren't just numbers on a balance sheet. These were people's lives, their futures, their ability to provide for their families. The emotional toll was immense, leading to widespread anxiety, depression, and even cases of suicide. The ripple effect extended beyond individual employees to the wider Houston community, which had become heavily reliant on Enron's success. Local businesses suffered, unemployment rose, and a sense of unease settled over the city. The damage, both financial and emotional, was deep and long-lasting.
Absolutely. Beyond the immediate financial devastation, there was a profound erosion of trust. Employees who had dedicated years, even decades, to the company felt betrayed not only by the executives, but also by the system that allowed such widespread fraud to occur. Many struggled to find new employment, not just because of the economic downturn, but also because the Enron scandal had tarnished their resumes. The stigma associated with working for the disgraced company followed them, making it difficult to rebuild their careers and their lives. The psychological impact of this betrayal cannot be overstated. It created a sense of vulnerability and insecurity that lingered for years, impacting not only their professional lives, but also their personal relationships and overall well-being.
And it's crucial to remember that this wasn't just about lost money. It was about lost dreams. Many Enron employees had believed they were part of something special, a company that was revolutionizing the energy industry. They had bought into the corporate culture, the promises of innovation and growth. The collapse shattered that illusion, leaving them with a sense of disillusionment and a deep-seated mistrust of corporate America. This sense of betrayal extended beyond the employees to the shareholders, investors, and even the general public. The Enron scandal became a symbol of corporate greed and corruption, eroding public confidence in the integrity of financial markets and the regulatory bodies designed to oversee them.
Precisely. The long-term consequences of the Enron scandal are still being felt today. It served as a wake-up call, exposing the vulnerabilities of the system and the devastating impact of unchecked corporate power. The scandal led to significant reforms in corporate governance and accounting practices, including the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, designed to improve corporate responsibility and financial disclosures. However, the emotional scars remain. Many former Enron employees and their families continue to grapple with the aftermath of the collapse, a testament to the profound and lasting human cost of corporate malfeasance. The story of Enron serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the importance of ethical leadership, transparency, and accountability in the corporate world.
The meticulously constructed facade of Enron began to crumble under the weight of its own deceit. As investigators dug deeper, a pattern of systemic fraud emerged, revealing a complex web of shell corporations, mark-to-market accounting manipulations, and special-purpose entities designed to hide debt and inflate profits. The infamous Raptors, for example, were used to hedge against declining asset values, but in reality, they were propped up by Enron stock, creating a house of cards destined to collapse. Whistleblower testimony, internal documents, and financial records began to paint a damning picture of a company engaged in widespread accounting irregularities, misleading investors, and enriching executives at the expense of employees and shareholders. The unraveling was slow but inexorable, a morbidly fascinating spectacle of corporate greed and hubris.
One of the key turning points in the investigation was the realization that Enron's executives were not only aware of the fraudulent activities, but were actively orchestrating them. Andrew Fastow, the chief financial officer, was a central figure in the creation and management of the special-purpose entities, personally profiting millions while concealing Enron's true financial position. Lay and Skilling, despite claiming ignorance, were increasingly implicated by evidence suggesting they were aware of the precarious nature of Enron's finances and the deceptive accounting practices being employed. The sheer scale of the fraud and the involvement of top executives sent shockwaves through the financial world, prompting investigations by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Department of Justice, and Congress.
The pressure mounted as the investigation intensified. Executives started to turn on each other, seeking plea deals and offering testimony against their former colleagues. The once impenetrable wall of secrecy surrounding Enron began to crack, revealing the extent of the corruption and the individuals responsible. The dominoes began to fall, starting with Fastow's indictment on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. This marked a significant breakthrough for the prosecution, as Fastow's cooperation was crucial in building cases against Lay and Skilling. The image of invincibility that Enron had cultivated for so long was shattered, replaced by a stark reality of criminal culpability.
The arrests of Lay and Skilling were almost anticlimactic, a formality after months of intense scrutiny and mounting evidence. They were charged with multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and insider trading, accusations they vehemently denied. The world watched as these once revered titans of industry were brought down, their legacies tarnished, their futures uncertain. The Enron scandal became a symbol of corporate greed, accounting malfeasance, and the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition. The legal proceedings that followed were complex and protracted, a fittingly intricate end to a story of elaborate deception.
So we've meticulously dissected Enron's deceptive accounting practices, the mark-to-market accounting that inflated their profits, the special-purpose entities that hid their massive debt, and the systemic manipulation that ultimately led to the company's collapse. We've explored the roles of key figures like Ken Lay, Jeffrey Skilling, and Andrew Fastow, examining their motivations and the devastating consequences of their actions. We've heard from former employees, whistleblowers, and financial analysts, piecing together the puzzle of how such a colossal fraud could operate in broad daylight for so long. But even after all this, a chilling question lingers.
Indeed, the Enron scandal wasn't a crime committed in the shadows. It unfolded in plain sight, within a complex web of corporate jargon and sophisticated financial instruments. Regulators, auditors, and even financial analysts seemed to either miss the red flags or chose to ignore them, lulled by Enron's aura of invincibility and the promise of continued growth. It underscores the vulnerability of the system, how easily it can be manipulated by those who understand its intricacies and are willing to exploit them for personal gain. The scale of the deception is almost incomprehensible. How could so many intelligent, educated individuals be complicit in, or at least oblivious to, such a massive fraud?
And what about the human cost? Thousands of employees lost their jobs and life savings, their trust shattered. Investors, both large and small, saw their investments evaporate overnight. The ripple effect of Enron's collapse extended far beyond its Houston headquarters, impacting the energy industry, the financial markets, and public confidence in corporate governance. The sheer audacity of the scheme, its brazen disregard for ethical conduct, and the widespread devastation it caused leaves an indelible mark on the history of corporate crime. The very foundations of trust and transparency upon which our economic system relies were shaken to their core.
Precisely. The Enron case serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of our systems, the potential for unchecked ambition to lead to catastrophic consequences, and the ever-present danger of corporate malfeasance. While regulations have been tightened and oversight strengthened in the wake of Enron, one can't help but wonder, are we truly immune to another Enron? Are there other meticulously crafted facades, hiding similar rot beneath a veneer of corporate success, waiting to crumble? That's the chilling question we're left with.
Thank you for walking with us through the shadows. The story doesn't end here. It lingers, echoing through time, reminding us that the darkest truths often hide in plain sight. Until next time, stay curious and stay vigilant.
This case remains unsolved. Perhaps the truth is still out there,